Okay, first, thank you so much for inviting me for this conference. I'm happy to be in Warsaw, and I'm very sorry that I couldn't speak Polish. I hope you will understand my poor English anyway, and for some of you it could be perhaps translated. So my presentation is mainly about online risks among European adolescents, and I will present mainly data from the survey of 19 countries. I will speak very briefly about developmental context of online behavior, also about the EU Kids Online project, about internet access and online activities, and then about risks, specifically about cyber aggression, cyber hate, looking at sexual images and excessive internet use. Just very briefly, there are many articles and a lot of research on developmental needs of adolescents, and maybe you as teachers and educators understand best what are developmental needs of adolescents. And the research revealed that the developmental needs of children and adolescents are interconnected with usage of the internet also. Because adolescents needs to develop identity, they develop intimacy, they develop sexuality, friendship and relationships, and they also use the internet in line with these developmental needs. Therefore, we need also developmental perspective to understand what children and adolescents are doing online. In this presentation, I will present data from the EU Kids Online project, and I'm happy that Poland was also part of this project, thanks to Professor Jacek Pijalski, who will present in the next block, and his team collected data here in Poland, so I will emphasize results of Poland in the context of these 19 countries in the next parts of this presentation. In this research, we had more than 1,000 children in each country. In these 19 countries, the data were collected before COVID, actually, 18 and 19 mostly, and the age of children was from 9 to 16, and in some figures from 12 to 16. It's quite important to understand the age of children in these results. If you want to read more, just download the EU Kids Online report. There is much more figures and results about all the areas and more possible risks. First, let's check what our children do, what is the access to the internet. In the EU Kids Online, we asked if children had access to following devices. And you see that the most often used device to access the internet is a smartphone or mobile phone these days. It is maybe not surprising, but it's a quite big change from the last survey in 2010, because in last 8 or 5 years, the development of mobile internet and mobile access to the internet was developed quite fast. If you look at Poland, it's always this. I'm back. This one. Okay, nice. This point is too slow, I think. Okay, the point is slow. However, if you always look at this blue arrow, this is Poland, PL. Czech, for example, is CZ, DE Germany, EE Estonia, ES Spain, FE Finland, FR France, HR Croatia, ET Italy, Lithuania, MT Malta, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Romania, RS is Serbia, Russia, Slovakia, and VL are Flanders, which is part of Belgium. Now let's briefly look what are children doing on the internet. It's maybe not surprising that the most common and most often activities which are children doing daily is entertainment, shortly said. They often watch videos and listen music. For example, in Poland, 70% children said they watch videos on the internet daily, and 65% said they listen music on the daily basis. The next box is for communication and visiting social networking sites. It's also not surprising that children a lot of communicate online. However, they do it little less than the entertainment. They said this 4 years ago approximately that about 50% of children in Poland visit social networking sites on the daily basis. What is little less than the average Europe? Just down there. Okay, I will try. Oh, sorry. This. I will try once more the point. Okay, no. So down there, the EVE is average for these 19 countries. I will speak about it as about the European average. However, it's average of these 19 countries. So you can compare, for example, here that Polish children in this survey said they little less visit social networking sites than the European average is. Concerning playing games, you can see that about a third of children in Poland said they play online games on daily basis. What is again quite low number from my perspective, because the average was 44%, and for example in Lithuania it was 71%, what is almost twice more than in Poland. I'm not sure what is interpretation of these numbers. Maybe Jacek Pijalski could help you with this. Concerning using the internet for schoolwork, what is also a quite interesting number, it's again quite low for Poland. Unfortunately, only 16% said they use the internet for this purpose on the daily basis. However, the usage of the internet for schoolwork was much more often on the weekly basis. So the numbers on the weekly basis are much higher than for the daily. However, if you compare with other countries, the number for Poland is quite low. Let's look at online risks now. In this presentation, I will focus on cyber aggression and cyberbullying, partly at cyberhate, also looking at sexual images and excessive internet use or online addiction. However, there are much more other risks which are included in the data and in the report, and even other risks which are not part of this report, such as exposure to harmful content, for example, pro-ana or pro-anorexia websites, meeting online strangers from the internet, commercial risks, data misuse, or gambling. Maybe I want to make a note here that not all of these risks, as we will also see next, are like pure risks, because some risk can be also advantage for the children. For example, news media and also some scientists typically speak about meeting of online strangers as a typical risk, because and the parents are typically afraid of these sexual predators which can children meet. However, more than 3/4 of children meet people from the internet which are of the same age, and many of them make also friends from the internet. So meeting an online stranger is an opportunity to have a new friend or new relationships even, but on the other hand, as we know, it can be also very risky. So there are always two sides of the one coin for many of risks. So let's look at the cyber aggression now. This is the definition which we used in the EU Kids online survey. You can read it. In this survey, we included teasing someone in a way this person doesn't like, hitting, kicking, or pushing someone around, leaving someone out of things. And these things can happen face-to-face on the mobile phone or on the internet. So this survey is comparing also online and offline aggression. In this figure, it's all together, online and offline, and you can see the victims is the down number together for online and offline, and the other column are aggressors. You can see that unfortunately for Poland it's very high. It's even highest in the Europe in this survey because 40% of children said that they experienced becoming a victim of online or offline aggression. Here you can compare how often it can happen offline or online, because the figure on the right is online victimization and the figure on the left is offline victimization. You can notice that it's not happening every day, but the typical for the Europe, most often it's happening a few times in the last year, for example. However, in Poland, the numbers are quite high, because 13%, what is the number on the right, 13% of Polish children said they become online victims at least every month, and 11% said they become victims in offline victimization. That means that the numbers for the offline and online are quite similar these days, and it is also needed to say that the research is showing that mostly these cases are interconnected, because this victimization is happening very often in the school, and when a child is experiencing bullying or cyberbullying, it is from the same children as part of the school or in on the internet. This figure is showing how much children said they experienced harm from online victimization. The black column is that children said they were very upset. Then the others fairly upset or little upset, but there were also some children who said that they were not upset at all. Like on the figure, the column on the right is showing numbers of children that they were not upset. Such as in Poland, about a quarter of children said they were not upset after the online victimization, after the victimization. However, 23% said they were very upset. Let's move to the cyberhate exposure. The cyberhate definition is somewhat different to cyber aggression. Aggression is typically happening between children and it's against the individual. On the other hand, here the cyberhate was defined as seeing hateful or degrading messages or comments online against people or certain groups of people, such as against Muslims, migrants, Jews, Roma, etc. That means the cyberhate is rather against the groups. You can see again that the numbers for Poland is quite high. However, for Czech it's even higher. And I can say that in these characteristics, Czech and Poland, also in other research, are typically very high, and we should do something with this, I think. So 47% of Polish children said they were exposed to cyber hate messages. Not victims, but exposed. They saw this kind of messages somewhere online. Those are differences between boys and girls on the left. You can see that it's almost same for boys and girls. However, there are quite steep age differences, as you would expect, because younger children between 11 to 12 experience cyber hate much less, such as in Poland, 27% said so. They experience exposure of children, of youngest children. However, for the older children from 15 to 17, 63% of children said they experienced cyber hate. What is quite high number from my perception. Let's move to the other risk, which is seeing sexual images. However, I should again remind that seeing sexual images is could be not only risky for children, but it is also a developmental need from some age in some way, like developing sexuality is a basic developmental task, and seeing sexual images could be part of it for some children from certain age, let's say. You can notice that those numbers, you can also read the question and the definition which was used in this research, and you can see that for Poland those numbers are quite low. I'm not sure about the explanation, perhaps because Poland is a rather Catholic country in comparison for Czech, where the number is very high again. So in Poland, 29% of children aged 9 to 16 said they were exposed to sexual images. In general here again. Here you can compare boys and girls again, and it is not surprising that boys are looking at sexual images more often than girls. This is valid for 34% of boys in Poland and 23% of girls in Poland. However, from these figures, I must note, we don't know if the exposure was intentional or unintentional, because some of this exposure could be unintentional in the way that peers or even a stranger is sending the images, or it can be part of the marketing or unwanted banners and such kind of exposure. And on the other hand, adolescents of certain age are also looking intentionally at sexual images and pornography. It is also not surprising that there are steep age differences, such as in Poland, 11% of children from 9 to 11 agreed so that they had some exposure, in comparison to 62% of children from 15 to 16 years old. You can see that in these characteristics, the numbers of Poland are even a little lower than the European average. Those figure is showing reactions to seeing sexual images. This was answers for the question, thinking of the last time you have seen images of this kind, how did you feel about it? And the answers, possible answers, were from upset, fairly or very upset, little upset, neutral, neither nor. It is actually, it's gray here on this monitor, is almost white. So the neutral is gray, and the purple on the right is the answer happy. You can notice that in some countries, even more children reported they were happy after seeing sexual images than upset, such as in Spain, 39 said they were happy, in comparison to altogether 28 said they were upset. In Poland, there was a majority of answers, of neutral answers, because 43% of Polish children said they were not happy and not upset after seeing sexual images, but about 19% answers there were fairly or very upset after seeing sexual images, and 22% reported being happy after seeing such pictures. I don't present the figure here, but it's also clear there are quite sharp age differences, that older children look more often intentionally at sexual images, and they more often report being happy after the exposure, and younger children report much more being upset after seeing sexual images. Now I move to the topic of the excessive internet use, which I will also present briefly. Here the questions were based on the research of Griffiths and his 6 components of excessive internet use. I will just briefly introduce those components. Its salience, when the activity online is becoming most important in the life. Mood change, when the subjective experiences are affected by the activity, such as bad mood after children have to stop using the internet. Tolerance is the process that children or even adults, it's same actually for adults, need more and more of the activity online. Withdrawal symptoms is very similar to the symptoms which you know from the drug usage, such having negative feelings or sensations after stopping the activity or unable to perform the activity. Conflict is actually in some of criterion most important probably because it's conflict with closer surroundings such as with family or peers, but it can be also internal conflict, like I am not satisfied that I am addicted to the games or social networks. I know it's a problem and I am not satisfied and I have conflict with myself. But more typical is the conflict with others, it's clear. And the sixth is relapse and reinstatement. That means tendency to return to this activity after tries to stop it. So in this research, we asked 5 questions according to this criteria. 2 of these criteria were together. I will show you just briefly. Those answers were at least weekly. Children experience this. The first question, one of questions was, I have gone without eating or sleeping because of the internet. And you can see that in Poland, 6% of children said they experience it weekly. What is around the European average, which is 4%, let's say. And the other question was, for example, I have spent less time than I should with family, friends, or doing schoolwork because of the time I spent on the internet. And in Poland, 12% said they experience this weekly, what is almost same again as the European average, which is 13%. What is important, and what I didn't say, that all these criteria should be present if we want to speak about online addiction. So if children were addicted, that means that they experienced all these criteria quite often. So if they experience all together, it's quite dangerous, and it is in the right column. This is percent, the gray percent is the percent of all 5 types that they answered at least weekly. So you can see that these numbers are maybe not so high as you would expect. Such as, however, in Poland, 2% of children experienced all those 5 criteria at least weekly. What is maybe number which you would expect higher. However, 7% said that they experience 3 or 4 types of this criteria at least weekly. What is somewhat more than European average, for example. Those are again differences in gender and age. You can see that the gender differences in Europe are quite small, although in Poland somewhat more girls said that they experience those criteria than boys, and more older children experience those criteria than younger children. But those differences are not so sharp as in other risks, such as the sexual images. This is one figure. This is a figure which is not from the report, but this is from the article which we are preparing, and it is comparing numbers from 2010 to 2018. And simply said, what is the message of this figure, that in Poland the level of excessive internet use increased from 2010 to 2018. However, the level in comparison to other European countries, if you look at the triangle, it's kind of similar. It was quite low in Poland 10 years ago, let's say in 2010, 2012, but now the level is kind of similar. So let's come to the conclusions. Maybe you noticed that there are quite big cross-cultural differences between countries. It's quite difficult to explain those differences. If you ask me why it is in Poland low somewhere and why it is high somewhere, it's quite difficult and complicated, and we always discuss with researchers of that country if we do some common research. However, we saw from several articles, which I had no time to present here, there are some underlying factors of online risks. All the risks which I presented are interconnected with emotional problems of children and also high sensation seeking of children. What is this characteristic when children still need something new and they they have a tendency to seek for new experience, but emotional problems are important. And what is even more important are protective factors which are connected to these risks. That means that those factors are decreasing levels of those risks, of all risks actually, almost universally in all countries. And good family relationships and family social support is decreasing this risk. So that means if children have good family support, good family environment, they have lower tendency to experience those risks. The same is valid for good relationship between children and parents. So if the relationship is good, then the exposure to risks and even the harm from the risk is much lower than for so-called risky or vulnerable children. I could have a special presentation on parental mediation, that means what parents do with this, and I can just briefly say here that the results in this are very mixed. In the end, I would say that in most countries, restrictive mediation, that means saying you cannot be online, you cannot be on the internet, limiting time on the internet, is not working for most of risks. And I would rather recommend active mediation of children. Speak with them about their problems, speak with them what they do on the internet, and help them to use the internet safely. Just to summarize some of results, online and offline worlds of children are interconnected, as I said, and children are using digital technology and internet in line with their development and in line with their developmental needs. As I also said, that many activities which are risky can be also beneficial for children, but on the other hand, also beneficial activity can be risky. So it's rather about it not to limit time on the internet too much, but it's rather to support safe usage of the internet and to explain children how to behave safely on the internet. So children should learn how to avoid risk. So those are tasks also for the teachers in the school and also for parents and for education in families. Thank you for your attention. I'm sorry for presentation full of numbers and full of figures, which maybe some of you found boring. I'm sorry for that. And if you find this conference interesting and if you find the data interesting, you can join our conference in Brno in November. And sorry for this small marketing in the end.
Thank you very much, Professor Smahel, for this presentation, for presenting this research. And maybe some of you have questions, but I wanted to ask, you mentioned that it was like already several editions of EU Kids Online, and you said about this rise in excessive use. But what other trends, let's say, have you as a team seen, like rise or decrease in some risks?
I think that the rise in risks is very often interconnected with the rise of the usage, but also of the internet, which is also interconnected with higher digital skills and higher skills to use the internet. So I would say that opportunities for using the internet are going hand in hand with risks. So it's not only the negative that risks could be slowly rising, some of risks, but it's also kind of positive because also opportunities and advantages and what children do and what knowledge they find, for example, are also rising. Maybe just a note, if you are interested in COVID changes, we have a report this in our webpage, on the Czech webpage, only on Czech children, unfortunately, not the international, and it's quite obvious that the excessive internet use was increased in the pandemic and in the COVID time.
Yes. Well, thank you once again. You presented data on cyberbullying, sexting, excessive use, and all these problems will be addressed in further sessions of this conference. So it was very good, let's say, research background for that. So thank you again.
You are welcome.